I do think of her as putting forward an ancient modern synthesis in a way that others of her contemporaries, so Enlightenment thinkers, do not as obviously, at least. I mean, I think other scholars could always say, the different, so there's certainly schools of interpreters of John Locke who think he's an Aristotelian and they can kind of read him that way, and others who say is much closer to Thomas Hobbes and all that, and there's sort of debates that go about. But I think it's very clear, at least from my reading and other Wollstonecraft scholars, that she has very much a foot within the ancient traditions, and especially because of her view of what the purpose of the human person is. So what happens, obviously, in modernity with Bacon and Descartes, and there's a real push toward being able to sort of relieve man's estate with sort of scientific discovery and technology and these sorts of things. And so the push to focus on property and then accumulation of property and property rights, but then, the ability to sort of, consume wealth. And I mean, obviously you see all that in aristocracies, but there's a push away from me. What modernity is doing is saying, we don't want to have these religious wars anymore. We don't want to talk about these substantive goods and which one's right. So we're just going to kind of focus on, what rights that we can get is like property and pushing, kind of the good of man's estate or whatever. And she kind of really pushes back against that and says, look, the desire for wealth, prestige, all these sorts of things are no good. They're not going to make you happy. And it really is just virtue. And that's a very old idea. It's a very ancient idea, obviously a Christian idea as well. And so there's a way in which, there's a, especially coming from a Christian perspective, there is, looking back at it, there's kind of a richness of her being, really speaking from the, within the modern period, but really looking back and appropriating a lot of ancient thought.